The World Championships just wrapped up in Prague, and I'm going to tell you something most won't. The mental game didn't just influence the results, it determined them. I'm Christine Reeves-Bolesne. I'm a mental performance coach to Olympic-bound athletes. I competed and performed at world-level pair skating in 22 countries. I've performed under extreme pressure thousands of times. And now I coach athletes on mental skills that help high performers achieve their place on the podium. So last week I discussed what might happen at Worlds based on sports psychology principles. The pressure flip, when success creates a new pressure to manage. Redemption versus celebration mindsets. Energy management across days of high-intensity performance. And we just watched it all unfold in real time. And today I'm breaking down what happened, who managed pressure effectively, who struggled under the weight of expectations, and the specific mental toughness techniques that made the difference. So whether you're an athlete, student, business executive, in sales, or a parent of a competitive athlete, these lessons apply to you. Because pressure is pressure, and it's not always a bad thing. Whether it's a world championship, a board presentation, or a final exam, the mental skills are the same. So if you want my free guide, 5 mental toughness techniques Olympic athletes use under pressure, go to christinereeves.ca/freebies. There's a PDF with the exact strategies I teach my clients. My gift to you, completely free. All right, let's break down Worlds 2026. What I got right, what surprised me, and why it matters to you. So let's start here. In episode 3 last Tuesday, I made specific predictions about what might happen depending on how certain athletes showed up mentally and how Worlds would unfold from a mental performance standpoint. Some of those observations held true. Others reminded me how unpredictable high-stakes performance can be. And here's what I want you to understand. Mental performance analysis isn't fortune telling. It's pattern recognition. When you've competed at this level, coached at this level, and studied sports psychology for years, you start to see the patterns. And so, what aligned with my predictions? The athletes who were mentally prepared didn't just execute skills well, they appear composed. And a calm, confident composure under pressure was visible. You could see in it their flow across the ice, their approach into high difficulty elements, how they recovered from small or even major errors. Even their posture and stillness at center ice before the music started showed everything. They stayed present. And that is far more difficult than it sounds. And what stood out even more than I expected was their athletes I anticipated would handle pressure comfortably, but who showed up with visible tension. Others, perhaps with fewer expectations, who delivered with remarkable clarity and confidence. What was especially noticeable was how visible the mental component was. If you watched carefully, you could see it. In the opening seconds before the first element, or in the flow or lack of flow between movements, in the immediate reaction to mistakes, and in the body language and facial expressions throughout. This wasn't simply a technical competition. This was a competition in emotional regulation and sustained focus, which after a very long and grueling season is what made the difference. Now, here's why this matters to you. Whether you're in figure skating, business, medicine, sales, coaching, or parenting a competitive athlete, you face the same challenges. Can you stay composed when the stakes are highest? Can you execute under scrutiny and evaluation with all eyes on you? Can you recover quickly when something goes wrong? These are not just for skating skills. These are life skills, and they're trainable to be used in every facet of your life. And that's what we're breaking down today. So let's start with the athletes who got it right. Who thrived? So we have 5 visible signs of mental toughness under pressure. And so let's look at those athletes who managed pressure effectively. And here's what's critical to understand. They were not perfect. Perfection is not the defining factor of mental toughness. What stood out was composure and steadiness. Let's break down the 5 specific mental skills that I observed and how you can train them. Mental skill number 1, controlled breathing and pacing. These athletes did not rush their skating. They maintained their trained, consistent speed into even high risk elements. They didn't slow down to avoid mistakes. They didn't allow adrenaline to dictate their timing. They were in control. And here's the technique. Before any high pressure moment, a major competition, a presentation, or even a difficult conversation, you need to regulate your nervous system. And the method I teach, breath work, especially the triangle breathing. 4 counts of breathing in through the nose, 6 counts to hold, and 7 counts to breathe out forcefully through the mouth. This is not about calming down. It's about activating your parasympathetic nervous system, the system that controls precision and fine motor skills, that same system that allows you to execute in muscle memory without overthinking. So when adrenaline spikes, you can lose that fine motor control. You see that when athletes rush or when you talk too fast in presentations, why your hands shake uncontrollably. Controlled breathing brings you back. And you want to do this at least 3 times before any performance. And trust me, it works. Mental skill number 2, present moment focus. The athletes who thrived staying in this moment, not the element they just competed, not the one further ahead, but this one, what they're doing in the moment. Here's the challenge. Your mind wants to jump ahead. That's that protective quality of our brain. What if I fall on the next jump? What if they ask me a question I can't answer? What if they don't like me? Or it wants to replay past errors or embarrassing moments. I just made a mistake. Oh my God, that didn't go well. Now I'm behind. Now I can't win. Both destroy performances. The technique I teach is called narrowing the window, where you can use trained mental choreography to keep you present and in the moment. This is where you reduce your focus to one thing in that present moment. So for skaters, it could be the setup, the speed and flow into an element, the entry edge, the arm position, the strong exit, or simply a body feel. Each skater will develop what works for them. And in business, it could be that person in front of you, the topic or slide you're on, the question you're being asked right this moment. And for athletes in any sport, the ball or the puck, the opponent, that next play, one thing. When you narrow that window, anxiety decreases because anxiety lives in the future and regret and stress lives in the past. Performance lives in the present. Mental skill number 3, quick recovery from errors. Mistakes happen, even the athletes who medaled. And what's the difference? How quickly they reset. Here's what I observed. Athletes who struggled let one error contaminate the next and the next. You could see the hesitation begin to creep in. Athletes who thrived had a reset protocol. That is what I teach. The moment the mistake happens, you say one word to yourself or one anchoring movement. Reset, next, go, whatever works for you. It's a circuit breaker. The verbal cue interrupts the spiral before it starts. And then you take that one breath and refocus on get up, get onto the next movement, onto the next element, onto the next task. That's it. Sounds simple, doesn't it? It's actually incredibly hard to execute under pressure, but it's trainable. And I drill this with my clients and athletes constantly. Mental skill number 4, physical tension management. This one is subtle, but critical. Pressure creates tension. Tension shows up in the body. In skating, you see it in tight shoulders, stiff muscles, lack of knee bend, and fluid body movement. It could be shallow breathing or even rigid posture. In business, you see it in crossed arms, fidgeting, rapid speech, lack of eye contact, and even shallow breathing. The athletes who performed well had upper and lower bodies that moved fluidly. The technique is in the free PDF you can find on my website. Download it and start using the tools. Mental skill number 5, trusting preparation. The athletes who thrived weren't trying to do anything new. They trusted their training. This is huge. Performance is not the time to figure things out, to fix or overthink. Performance is the time to execute what you've already built. The athletes who looked confident, they might not have been more confident, but they were trusting their bank of preparation, the hours and hours of training and preparing. And if you've trained the skill 10,000 times, your job in the moment is to get out of your own way and perform it. So, how, you might ask? Well, we shift from trying to allowing. Don't try and land the jump. You've already executed it. How many times? Now it's time to let it happen. Don't try and nail the presentation. Let your preparation carry you. This is the hardest mental shift to make, and it's one that unlocks peak performance. And so now, if you're listening and thinking, I need help building these skills, well, that's exactly what I do. I work one-on-one with athletes, executives, and high performers on mental toughness training. We build these exact skills through structured practice. And if you're interested, go to my website, christinereeves.ca/coaching. Book a free 20-minute discovery call. Let's talk about where you're struggling and how I can help you. All right, let's look at the other side. What happens when pressure takes over? This is about understanding what happens when the mental load exceeds your current capacity. And it happens to everyone. And I have definitely been there and experienced it. This past week at Worlds, we saw instances where pressure and focus began to compromise performance, and it showed up physically. You could see tension through the shoulders and the upper body, slight hesitation on jumping passes, lifts, throws, twizzles, or step sequences, or the opposite, rushing elements, especially that step sequence, or intricate choreography without full control. This is what happens when your attention shifts away from the present moment and toward outcome, expectation, or previous mistakes. So let's dive quickly into the neuroscience of it. When you're in a high pressure situation and you start thinking about the result instead of the process, your prefrontal cortex activates. That's the part of the brain responsible for analysis and planning. But performance doesn't happen in your prefrontal cortex. Performance happens in the parts of your brain that execute trained skills automatically, where your muscle memory lives. And when you start thinking during performance, you interrupt the automatic process. That thinking process is slow. That's when you see hesitation, rush timing, loss of flow, body fluidity. You lose the performance spark. Athletes describe this as wanting to get out of my head or overthinking. Neuroscientists call it paralysis by analysis. Same thing. And I've definitely done that. I remember a competition where I was skating the program, and about halfway through, I started thinking, okay, the throw triple sow is coming up. I need to make sure I get a good takeoff. What if I under-rotate like I did in practice earlier? What if I fall? What if I don't make it? And the moment those thoughts entered, my body tightened, my timing shifted, and I froze and rotated a double. Not because I couldn't do the triple, but because I was thinking about it instead of executing it. I didn't trust the training. Once that shift occurs, it affects more than just confidence. It impacts timing, edge quality, spatial awareness, and consistency. And at the elite level, even a small disruption can cascade through the entire performance if that reset doesn't happen quickly. So here's the question. How do you prevent this? Well, number one, pre-performance routine, which I teach all of my athletes. Number two, process cues, not outcome cues. And number three, mental rehearsal. There are 3 strategies for any high-pressure moment, whether it's in athletics, academics, or in your professional career. I teach these strategies and others, and if you need these, please contact me and set up a free consultation. Let me help you develop the mental strength you need to succeed. If you're struggling with this, if you freeze under pressure, if you overthink in critical moments, you're not broken. You just haven't trained these skills yet. And that's what I do. I help high performers build the mental infrastructure to execute under pressure. So check out these and more at christinereeves.ca/coaching. Book a free discovery call there. Okay, so let's talk about the surprise stories from Worlds, the athletes who showed up and delivered. This is what I call the mental freedom of performing in the moment. This is always one of the most compelling parts of any major championships. The unexpected performances, the athletes who enter with heavy external expectations and deliver exceptional skating. They commit fully, they make clear decisions, and they skate without visible hesitation. And this highlights a critical concept in sports psychology. Pressure is not only about the event itself, it's about the meaning you apply to the event, to the moment. Let me explain. Two athletes can compete in the exact same event. One thinks, this is my shot at a medal. If I don't perform, I've failed. The other thinks, I'm here to compete. Let's see what I can do. Or I've trained for this and I'm ready. Same event, completely different mental experience. The first athlete is carrying the weight of outcome. That builds unbearable weight. The second athlete is focused on the process. This allows for freedom of performance. Guess who performs better? When the stakes feel overwhelming, tension increases. When there is more space mentally and emotionally, execution becomes more fluid. This is not accidental. This is a reflection of how the mind and body work together. I've experienced this in my own career many times. Some of my best performance happened when I wasn't focused on everyone watching, how they would judge me, what they would think, how it identified me as an athlete or a skater. When there was less external focus and expectation, there was more space for me to skate, to perform, to love the moment, more space to feel the program, the music, get into it choreographically. And ironically, that's often when the performance became stronger, not because I was doing something different technically or better, because I was thinking differently. My focus was different. So here's the lesson. If you're entering a high pressure situation, you can't always control the external expectations, but you can control the meaning you assign to it. One reframe I teach, instead of I have to perform well, try I get to perform. That one word from have or need to I get to shifts the entire mental experience. It moves you from obligation and pressure to opportunity, from pressure to privilege. Sounds small, but it's massive. And another technique I use is define success before you perform, not by outcome, by execution. So success is I committed fully to every element. Success is I stayed present. Or success is I trusted my preparation. When success is defined by process, not by outcome, you free yourself to perform. If this resonates and you want to help build this mental freedom, go to christinereeves.ca/coaching. And don't forget, download my guide, 5 Mental Toughness Techniques Olympic Athletes Use Under Pressure. It includes the exact reframing exercises I just described, completely free for you to have on hand to train with. All right, let's dive into some athlete performances from Worlds, starting with Team Canada. And so this is mental toughness in action. And this is what I call lessons from the podium. Let's look at some specifics. I'm going to focus on Team Canada and a few key international athletes, and I'm going to extract the mental performance lessons that apply to everyone. Canadian Stephen Gogolev, the resilience reset. Stephen entered his first World Championships under significant pressure. He was no longer the underdog. After finishing 5th at the Olympics, a near podium performance, many had him as a potential to medal. That's what I called the pressure flip from episode 3. And it's one of the toughest mental transitions an athlete can navigate. Here's what happened. After the short program, Stephen was sitting in 5th place. Not where he or Canada hoped he'd be, but it was pretty good. Now here's the test. Can you reset between performances? Can you let go of disappointment or even the excitement of being in a placement you didn't expect to be and execute fresh in the next round? Well, Stephen did a pretty great job at doing that. No, he wasn't perfect or quite as smooth as I'm sure he hoped he'd be, but he delivered a personal best in that long program, and he moved up to fourth overall. That's not just strong skating, that's competitive resilience and great focus control. And so here's the lesson for you. Whether you're in a quarterly business review, multi-round interviews for a new job, athletic competition, or midterm exams, round one doesn't determine round two. Your job is to reset. Okay, the technique. After round one, give yourself 10 minutes to feel whatever you feel. Disappointment, frustration, excitement, whatever the feeling is. Then, in your journal, draw a line, literally. Draw a line in your notebook. Everything before the line is over, it's past, and it's done. Everything after the line is what's next. Then you ask yourself, what do I control in the next performance? Not the outcome, what you control. For Stephen, it was execution, energy management, and commitment. He focused out there, reset, and delivered. That's trainable mental toughness. And so now Japan's Kaori Sakamoto, mastery under pressure. Kaori skated to her fourth world title. That places her among a very small group of athletes in sport history. What stood out most to me was her composure, her pacing and flow. It remained consistent, beautiful. Her movements were fluid, confident, and decisive without appearing rushed. She didn't appear to be reacting to pressure. She was leading the performance. This level of skating reflects not just confidence, but trust developed over years. The lesson? Mastery doesn't eliminate pressure. Mastery changes your relationship with it. Kaori has been here before. She knows how to navigate this moment. Her brain recognizes the pattern. And so how do you build this? Repetition under simulated pressure. You don't wait for the high-stakes moments to practice handling pressure. You create pressure in training. For athletes, you simulate competition conditions in practice. Use visualizations to feel and navigate that pressure. For business, present to colleagues before the client meeting. Practice out loud. And for students, take practice tests under timed conditions. Use your breathing exercises to calm your mind. So pressure becomes familiar. It's not the enemy. It's something you can execute under and even use. And when it's familiar, it becomes manageable. Let's take Ilya Malinin, strategic restraint and his redemptive skate. Ilya came into the competition and especially into the long program with a decision to make. Attempt the quad axel, the highest risk, highest reward element, or play it strategically safe. He chose the latter. He did not attempt the quad axel in the long. He chose to relieve all the pressure from the Olympics and enjoy his skating. Malinin focused on a fresh new mindset and on a solid performance in Prague, rather than maximum technical risk. His decision to play it slightly safer helped secure the gold medal and rebuild his confidence for future seasons. And that is significant because it indicates a shift in approach from pushing limits to managing performance. And so the lesson. Sometimes mental toughness is knowing when not to push. In business, this can show up as knowing when to cut your losses on a project, knowing when to say no to an opportunity that's not aligned. In athletics, knowing when to scale back and stay healthy, and knowing when the risk outweighs the reward. This isn't weakness. This is strategic intelligence. Ilya executed with precision and control throughout. He managed his performance instead of chasing glory. That's the beginning of maturity. And let's move to Canadian Madeline Schizas and the courage to return. Madeline's performance began with a fall on the opening triple lutz. There was visible tension, particularly throughout her upper body. And context does matter here. Just 5 weeks earlier, Madeline didn't qualify for the free skate at the Olympics due to a significant error. And that must have been a crushing experience for her. Now she was back at the World Championships in front of the judges, the same audience, the same pressure, returning after a devastating result. Well, that takes both physical and emotional resilience. And the lesson? Showing up after failure is one of the bravest things you can do. And a lot of people don't. Some withdraw, some quit, some even avoid the whole situation. Madeline showed up. The performance had challenges, but there was also clear determination. And sometimes that's the victory, not the medal, the return. So if you're struggling to show up after a failure or an embarrassing moment of performance, if you're carrying disappointment from a past performance, that's exactly what I help clients navigate. We build the mental framework to return stronger. You will find this at christinereeves.ca/coaching. Book a discovery call. Let's talk. Now let's move on to Canadians Piper and Paul, a celebration mindset in action. Piper and Paul delivered a performance that felt both refined and emotional. They earned a silver medal. And what stood out was the ease in their movement. They skated with openness, with joy, with satisfaction. Why? Because they already achieved their main goal, an Olympic medal. Worlds was their celebration, not redemption, not desperation. Celebration. And the lesson? When you compete from a state of satisfaction and contentment instead of desperation, you perform better. Because satisfaction is loose, desperation is tight. Satisfaction flows, desperation restricts it. If you're approaching a high-pressure event, ask yourself, am I moving towards something I want, or am I running from something I fear? So that toward mindset gives you better performance, and the away or avoidance mindset is going to restrict your performance. Piper and Paul were moving towards celebration, towards joy, and it showed. Now let's look at Canadians Leah and Trent, the pair team. Immediate resilience. Leah and Trent delivered one of their strongest performances. This came just weeks after an 8th place finish at the Olympics. They earned the bronze medal. That's a significant response. The lesson? Resilience isn't about never falling or making mistakes. It's about how fast you get back up. From 5 weeks, from Olympic to Worlds, that's not a lot of time. But they didn't waste it dwelling on what went wrong. They identified what they can improve, they adjusted, they trained, and they executed. That's high-performance resilience. Across all these performances, consistent patterns emerge. Tension versus freedom, control versus urgency, trust versus over-effort. These are the dynamics that define performance under pressure, and they show up in every high-stakes environment, not just athletic sports. They show up in professional careers, in academics, parenting, and coaching, anywhere performance matters. So if you want to develop these skills, I can help. That's what I do. Contact me at christinereeves.ca/coaching and let's chat. And so as we move into what I call the 4 non-negotiable mental skills for high-stake performers, what did Worlds 2026 show us? Well, they showed us these 4 clear lessons. Pressure reveals preparation. You can't manufacture mental toughness in the moment. You build it in training. The athletes who performed well under pressure had prepared long before they arrived at their pressure moment. Not just technically, mentally too. They had practiced breathing techniques, reset protocols, visualization, process, focus. When the pressure hit, they had the tools to manage it. The athletes who struggled didn't have those tools fully built yet. So for you or your high performer, don't wait for the high stakes moment to figure out how to handle it or decide, oh, wow, maybe I need some help. And as I always say, there's never a bad moment to start, but there's definitely a better one. And now is the moment. Train the mental skills before you need them. Lesson 2, recovery speed determines results. Mistakes will happen. The question is, how fast can you reset? Athletes who can recalibrate within seconds stay competitive. Performers who carry mistakes forward spiral. The technique? Build a 1-breath reset protocol. Remember, mistakes happen. 1 word, reset. 1 breath, Next moment. Practice this in low stakes situations. So when the stakes are high, it's automatic. And lesson 3, energy management over multiple days is critical. Worlds is a week event, like many international competitions. And even for younger athletes, competition tournaments can last days. Athletes who conserved mental and physical energy, especially emotional energy, performed better in the final rounds. Athletes who burned out early or arrive with energy and emotions that aren't managed struggle early. The same applies to multi-day conferences, back-to-back client presentations, finals in academics. You cannot go hard for days straight. You have to manage your nervous system. And these are some of the strategies that I teach at the Anti-Fragile Mindset Coaching. Strategic breathing to downregulate, limiting stimulation, saying no to extra demands. This is not optional. This is survival. And now, lesson 4, mental freedom supports execution. The athletes who skated with freedom performed better than those skating with fear or worry of outcome. Freedom comes from trusting your presentation, defining success by process, not outcome, and letting go of what you can't control. Fear comes from outcome obsession, carrying that focus of past mistakes, worrying about judgment. You get to choose which mental state you operate from, and that takes training. But it's a choice. These 4 lessons apply to every high performer environment you'll ever face. And if you want help building these into your life, that's my specialty. I work one-on-one with athletes, executives, and high performers. We build mental toughness systematically. So check out my website at christinereeves.ca/coaching and book a free 20-minute discovery call. Let's talk about where you're stuck and how I can help. Now, let me tell you about an opportunity to continue this conversation in person. These are the exact moments I explore in my book, Glitz and Grit, Beyond the Spotlight. The internal, behind the curtain side of performance, the pressure that's not always visible, but it is always present. It's the mental warfare, the identity struggles, the resilience required to survive and thrive in a high-performance environment, the rising after the fall. Whether you're in sport, business school, or navigating a life transition, this book is for you. And it's available at Indigo, Barnes & Noble, or at christinereeves.ca. If you want to talk about this in person, I'm hosting a free author signing and Q&A. Indigo, Sherway Gardens, Etobicoke, Sunday, April 12th from 12 till 3. And yes, I'll be signing books. But really, this is like a free mental performance coaching. Bring your toughest questions about competition pressure, performance anxiety, mental toughness training, energy management, recovering from failure, whatever you struggle with. I'll be there for 3 hours. Come for 5 minutes or stay the whole time and ask me anything. No purchase required. This is for athletes in any sport, coaches supporting solo athletes and teams, parents of competitive kids, business professionals navigating high-pressure environments or career pivots, and for figure skating fans. We can all geek out about our favorite skaters. So remember, RSVP at christinereeves.ca/events, or just show up. I'd love to meet you. Come say hi. And if you can't make it in person, I do one-on-one coaching, which you can find by going to my website. Let's work together to build your mental toughness. Okay, let's wrap it up. That was my analysis of Worlds 2026. But here's what I really want you to take away, is mental toughness is not something you're born with. It's not a personality trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it's trainable. And the athletes who performed well at Worlds didn't have some magical gift. They had preparation, tools, practice under pressure, support systems, and you can build the same thing. So here's what to do next. Number 1, if you want my free guide with the 5 techniques I teach Olympic-bound athletes, go to christinereeves.ca/freebies. 2, if you're in the Toronto area, April 12th, come to the book signing. Ask me anything. It's a free event. 3, if you need one-on-one support building mental toughness, please book a discovery call. Don't just listen and forget. Take one action today. I'm Christine Reeves-Walesne, and this is the Anti-Fragile Mindset. If this episode helped you, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share it with someone who's facing pressure right now or may in the future. And follow me on Instagram at Skating Mind Gym and on TikTok and Facebook, X, and anywhere social media takes you. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week. And remember, you are more than your last performance.